All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and folks will probably just come shuttling in the middle, or maybe we'll have a small session today. Either way, it doesn't matter. Um, Gonna split today up into two sections. First section is going to be about status of various things, and then the second section is going to be about development in general. And so, going to lead off with the Examiner Batch Two situation. So, people are wondering where the Batch Two order process is. We're pretty close to ready to pull the trigger on it. There are some things that we're doing this time that are different from last time, that aren't really related to supply chaining, but are related to sort of process oriented stuff. Like, one thing we decided finally towards the end before we pulled the trigger on it is that we want to um, essentially get the whole duty VAT tax thing out of the way and off the table. So there are three or four, best of breed solutions out there to handle automated taxes, and we're talking and discussing with them because they're fairly expensive and intrusive sort of products, because essentially what they're going to do is they're going to collect sales tax or VAT tax from all of you people, and then they're going to turn around and remit it directly to the governments of the areas where you're located at. So it's not something that you just do a plug in and then it's all set. You end up having some pretty significant ingress into your accounting systems and so forth. This process of everybody showing up at the same time just always, I don't know why it makes me laugh, but it does. Anyway, so we're working on that, and I expect to have that ready here, actually any day now. I've had a couple of meetings with them, and have a couple of more set up actually. So one of them is related to UPS specifically, because one of the problems with doing DDU, which is the duty is essentially incumbent on the purchaser to pay at the end. It's really resulted in a lot of these problems where we've shipped over to Europe, and what happens is the units go into a weird mode where they get locked up by customs, because it's just something that if you have the taxes and duties all paid, the truck can just take it and drop it off at your house. You don't have to worry about all that stuff. And so it seems like they find their way into a hole more often if the duty has to be paid at the customer's end versus being paid in advance. So that's part of it. So what'll end up happening is the units will go on sale, and then when you check out, you're going to end up having to pay that 20% or 22% or whatever it is, your government charges. You can't get out of that. Um, the downside, though, is that you're probably going to pay more by doing it that way, because we can't actually discount the units as easily there as we're able to do in the commercial invoice. So I'm still working on that process to see if there's any way I can kind of work that through so that you ultimately don't have to pay as much taxes. But again, taxes are not something that we get to decide. We just have to deal with the situation. The other thing that's going on right now is that the integrator is pretty well staffed up. We gave them shipping labels for the last 44 units 2 days ago. About half the units went out the yesterday, and then I think the last numbers are supposed to be going out today. So if you have an Examiner that you bought in batch one, we will be doing those bonus payouts over the next 1 to 5 days probably. My guess is we'll do it in a staggered way, probably be pretty randomized, so it's not like we'll be favoring anybody over anybody else, but they are specific numbers of coins, so it's not like it's going to be altered by the coin price of the day or whatever. So that should be happening here very shortly as well. We've done a number of things with the configuration that's different this time. One of the issues with the first batch was, we were kind of forced to buy piecemeal. So as I said before, we have 4 different motherboards, all very similar, very, very much the same chipsets and so forth, but still 4 different manufacturers. So the back panels are different, and it makes for a challenging support environment when the first thing you have to ask is well, what does the back plate look like? And so in the next version that we're doing, we're actually having a motherboard custom manufactured for us And that piece should be delivered to us, in about 30 days in the first bulk batch that we're ordering from them. So the good news is that when they ship those, they're going to be shipping them processor included. And those are the two pieces that were the hardest to acquire in the first go round. And so having those things 30 days out should get us quite a ways up the field. The next thing is the chassis. The chassis vendor has assured us that they're going to be able to produce the quantities. And more importantly, there's just been a number of little, what we call China wrinkles that essentially quality control just not quite up to snuff from batch to batch or from shipment to shipment, causing us to essentially pull units out of the build and put them off to the side, because we don't want to ship them to you guys, like little dings on the paint or things like that kind of stuff. So we really kind of ran them over the coals to make sure the quality was going to be a solid concern and that they would deliver exactly what we're looking for. The other thing that was an issue on batch one was these back planes. This is the piece that where the physical hard drive itself connects up to the system. And at first, for the first 600 or 700, we got really good backplanes. They were fine. They did exactly what we thought they were going to do. Halfway in the middle of the batch, they swapped us out from one to another. The first one just had blue lights. The second one had blue and green. That caused a couple of wrinkles in our community. Actually caused a guy to actually RMA 2 units, and this actually happened. Actually, he RMA'd 1 unit because the first unit he bought on a credit card had just the blue lights, and then the second unit had the green lights, and he was mad because the first unit didn't have the green lights, and so he threatened to credit card us back, charge back on it. And anyway, long story short, the new backplanes, I believe, are going to have both blue and green, but are much more stringently quality controlled, which is really the key, because those backplanes really caused us a number of issues at the integrator and also to some degree after they made it out into the field. Mostly we caught issues before they got shipped, but in some cases there were some issues that did make it to the field. Like the bottom, drawer didn't have a green light on it, while the other 3 did. So it's not a thing in a lot of respects, but I get it. You spent money on a piece of hardware. You want it to do what it's supposed to do, and so there you go. So this next batch, we're going to be putting a lot more energy into that quality control. So what I'm expecting to have happen is this: we will launch with credit cards, PayPal, crypto, and so forth. There's going to be a couple of things in there that you may have to deal with. Credit cards are going to be a little more stringently enforced in terms of the fraud filters. The fraud filters will demand that your shipping address equals your billing address. Even though if you're overseas, we may not have an address verification system set up for you with Visa or whoever. You will have to match your billing and shipping together. And then the other thing you'll have to have, obviously, is CCV card present numbers so that you can get past there. There are some regions we're just going to decline credit cards from, although pretty limited number of countries, but some we're just not going to accept. And then if you really need to use a credit card and you can't get your credit card through, it declines or whatever, then you'll be able to do PayPal. They do a different sort of process in validating and vetting cards. They have, a lot of history over the world, a lot higher end systems to be able to vet out fraud and so forth. So that'll be another way. But I will say that we are probably going to add a small surcharge of 1% to 2% to all PayPal, simply because PayPal dings us for that extra 2% to 3%. So we'll probably split the difference with you on that. But there will be a small surcharge on there. Probably also this time around, we'll do the same thing that we did previously before we did batch 1. We'll probably do a discount for paying in crypto. Since none of you people like to use crypto, I don't think that's going to be an issue. But if you decide to use crypto, then there will probably be a benefit to doing it from the standpoint of getting some percentage point discount against it. The rebate numbers will be the identical as the previous. I think the pricing is going to be the same. Really, pricing hasn't changed too dramatically since batch one. If anything, prices are going up, right? They're not going down right now. So it seems like at this point, probably just holding the line is what we'll end up doing, and we'll go forward with that. I haven't decided yet what the total number is, but here's what I'm thinking, and I'm just going to be straightforward about it. There's no reason for me not to be. If we had been able to book this order in February or March, if we had gotten through the first order a lot more quickly, then this order probably could have been anywhere between 3 and maybe as much as 7,000 units. We do have 15 to 16,000 names on the wait list. So I don't know what to expect, to be frank. It could be the case that we do get that big number, but it strikes me that with the way things are going right now in general, in the macro, the economy, crypto melting down, everything kind of doing what it's doing, I think probably we'll get some people that will pull in their horns a little bit, and they will think that this is probably not the right time to buy. What I'm going to do is impart only some personal experience on that front, and take it for what it's worth. It really doesn't matter to me if you believe me or not, but what I've learned in the whatever 5 or 6 years that I've been involved in the cryptocurrency space, that it's when things are bad that you definitely want to be increasing and adding to your participation and getting involved and doing as much as you possibly can. It's when things are good that you want to start looking for ways to take some profits out and maybe scale back or do whatever. And most people just can't bring themselves to do that. Like, right now, people are looking at Bitcoin and saying, well, it's really cheap, but it could go to $2,000. And it can. It literally can. And that's the thing. You never know. So what you have to kind of do in crypto is you have to DCA your way in. That's dollar cost average. And, in this case, if maybe you were thinking about buying a couple of units, maybe you buy one or whatever. But I don't know. So we'll see what happens there. And if it's a big order or a small order, really doesn't matter to us at this point. We're just going to keep pushing orders out, improving the software, improving the componentry of the units, improving everything in the network, because it's just a necessary function of us building out this network over the next 2 to 3 years. We're going to keep pushing batches out probably for 3 years running. So, nothing's really going to slow us down there. All right, so that's that. Oh, the other thing is that we will allow up to 3 units per order. So if you decide you want to buy multiples this time around, you can. And then, go forward with that. It'll be the same thing as last time. Can't add storage to the units in the first year. And the units will pay out on the same schedule. The only thing is that we won't pull the rebate too forward. One of the things we learned on this last go-round was when we pulled the rebate too forward, there were about 80% of the people that benefited from that move, and there were a small group of people that actually were not harmed, but they ended up getting slightly less number of coins than they would have got because of when they actually purchased. So it's kind of a weird situation, and the less we get in and monkey around with anything that has to do with the way the coin that's tied directly to coin pricing is probably better, because we can't predict where coin pricing is going to go, and neither can you. And ultimately, we don't want to be making decisions thinking that it's going to do one thing and then have it do something else. So rebates 1, 2, 3, and 4 will go out on the original schedule, which was, if I remember correctly, 3, 6, 9, and 12. No, it's immediate 6, 9, and 12. So that'll be the same schedule for this time around. So look for that as well. And all things considered, if I can, it'll happen in the next couple of days. If not, it'll happen sometime probably next week after we get this tax situation squared around. All right, licensing software. So this is kind of a development thing, and we'll talk a little bit about this as we're going along. But with licensing, we have 3 big tasks that we're really grinding through. One is this simple one, which is going to touch a lot of the basic installations, which is tying a license key to a pub key. Cam is efforting that right now. He's quite a ways up the field on that. My guess is that very shortly he's going to give me a test installation to try out, and then I'll turn around and we'll mess with it a bit and determine if it needs any cleanup or whatever, and how it deals with accounts. And then ultimately we will, make that live so that you guys can have access to it. There's literally no benefit to tying it together today. And in fact, I think ultimately we'll release it on a day that makes sort of sense as we get closer to June 30th. But June 30th is still the target date as far as when you will need to have a license in place. So my guess is all of June will be the time when you'll be able to purchase and apply a license key to a pub key. You don't have to do anything crazy there. It'll be able to tie an already instanced unit into the network so you don't lose anything. And then the second piece is that we're working on is remote access. We need that both for the EXA miners. Hopefully remote access is in place before we ship the first unit of batch 2. If not, it'll be very close behind, but that is a very, very big thing that we're working on. Both of those two pieces are in some form or measure tied to account-based access into our network and our key cloak scenarios. So, that's a real kind of an important determiner, because with account-based access, what you can do then is if you're running 3 or 4 units, or if you're running a whole fleet of units, scattered around, or if you're doing, multiples of any sort, having the ability to be able to access them all under a single console and make decisions for all of them in single motions and so forth is going to be a real powerful thing. And to be able to do them remotely without running TeamViewer or something like that is going to be also a very powerful thing. Then the third issue is actually getting the full version completed. And I think what's going to end up happening here is that we are going to take all of the work we've done on the current EXA miners and we will essentially disintermediate it, tie it up with supervisor and super admin, and then make it available in a format on machines out in the wild for 2 ways. One would be a native installation, which takes over the entire device. Recommended. That's the one we suggest you do. And then the other one will be just a Docker container that will run in addition to anything else you have going on the unit. Both of them will be Linux based. We will have the ability, we believe, to take an already instanced setup and convert it over so that you don't lose any storage you already have. It's likely that people running current command line on Linux will have an easy ride of that. People that will have Windows instances right now, we're starting the process of finding all the hiccups and wrinkles and potential landmines there, but I think we're going to be able to do that as well. So that's sort of a pretty important kind of a thing that needs to take place so that people don't end up losing data or losing all of the stuff that they've already sort of hard won. All right, so that's it for the licensing situation. And like I said, I think pretty much it should all be at least at a usable functionality at June 30th. With the full version, we may continue to be ironing things out after June, but it'll at least allow you to tie things together and be set up without losing anything. And if you don't have complete and full functionality on July 1st, you won't be far from it. All right, the next thing I want to cover real quick is XNS onboarding and that process of gathering data and bringing in people into the project and so forth. We said this is a marathon, not a sprint, and that is the continued understanding. We still continue to call people out of the network who are clearly, not here for the right reasons. I'm going to just say this again, and I'm going to say it in a way that makes sense without putting me in any kind of sort of jeopardy. It's pretty much the case that when you get involved in a project like this at the stage that we're involved in, you are not expecting the actual deliverable of the project to be the primary financial driver or financial gain of what you're building. Just like miners get into, Bitcoin or whatever, any kind of a mining on the ASIC or consensus mining, when people end up, streaming into those when, new ASICs come out or when various things happen in the marketplace or difficulty drops really low or whatever, a lot of times they look at an ROI as a it's a multi-dimensional puzzle because you can't just look at it and say, well, my electric is this and this is how much I can expect to earn. And so at the end of month 8, I will be ROI'd. That's just not how it works. If you're an ASIC miner, for instance, or somebody with, a bunch of these, GPU miner cards, the whole idea is, yeah, you want to pay your electric bill. You have to pay your costs, certainly as you go along. But what ends up happening is anything you make above and beyond your cost, your hard cost, you are well advised to sack it away and then become a trader, right? To look and watch the markets, to understand where market cycles are, and then to follow the market cycles until you get to a place that makes a ton of sense. And then you either already have your cells already placed in there at that number, or that's when you start to put some coins in there to take out the profits that make sense. The people that go into this kind of pursuit expecting to just earn, sort of a stipend every month in and month out, i.e. passive income, they're not doing it right. That isn't where we are yet. This will be an ultimate passive income device. I guarantee you in years 2, 3, 4, and 5 and beyond that this is going to be just like, having real estate. You're going to have this thing set up and you're going to generate these regular payments and they're going to be good and you're going to, have a really discernible and very verifiable and calculatable revenue streams that you're going to work on. But that isn't this year. This year, you should be looking at, in my view, and I'm not, giving any financial advice here, but what I am saying is you should be looking at our comps. You should be looking at where we are as a project. You should be looking at our software development. You should look at, where are we in terms of a working product? Where are we in terms of a working network? Where are we in terms of a support team? Where are we in terms of, a development team? Where are we in terms of other staff? And compare us to other projects that that are out there. And of course, the projects that you start comparing us to today are the crypto projects. So like Filecoin and Arweave, Sia and Storage, and then a bunch of the no-name projects that are out there that are all cropping up. Somebody turned me on to one called Stratos, I think it was called, the other day. And I went and looked at it, and it's like, yeah, I mean, they think they got an idea to do something similar, but they haven't really even started anything. They don't really have anything yet. They don't really have a network. They don't have anything. And so they're just getting started right now. We're literally 3.5 years into this thing, and we have a product now that we can actually go out and onboard customers against. So that gives you an idea of where we are. So then you have to do the comps and compare us in terms of, coin price versus those other projects. Look at our, total supply, look at their total supply, look at, the various liquidities that are out there, look at the fully diluted. Fully diluted simply means that with Filecoin, for instance, I think something along the lines of 15% of their supply has been minted already, which means that there are still another 85% to come, right? Which means that there are a lot more coins to hit the market, hit the street, and that means that ultimately, anytime you go out to sell some coins, you're going to be competing with the brand new mining rewards that are hitting the street, and the fully diluted value on Filecoin is crazy. It's something like $20-30 billion, and it's really high. Compare us to people like Storage or compare us to people like Sia. Sia's got a mining emission that's a little bit further along than ours, and ultimately, the comp I think is fair there, and yet the numbers have quite a big disparity. So you're not expecting to earn all your money based on the storage that you have on the units. You're expecting to earn a large percentage of your money in year one, most likely from the coins that you do get becoming a different value a year or 2 years from now. Now, that's not me pumping you up to try and increase that value. That's just me saying that's how this stuff all works. It's not, and it's not like a Ponzi scheme or anything like that. Nobody knows about us yet, right? So as long as we just keep grinding and keep doing what we're doing and onboard people to the network, I think in years 2, 3, and 4, you're going to see exactly what you want to see that happen there, and it will be good. Just like the people that came in a year ago have already seen that sort of circumstance, and the people that come in a year from now will see the same thing 2 or 3 years from now, just because that's how it works. And it probably begins to turn a corner somewhere around year 5, maybe year 4. I think helium might be instructive, but maybe they got too far too fast. I don't know. It's a thing. They're in the process right now of finding new ways to exponentialize their network. So who knows? Maybe they have another leg in them, and they're getting ready to start the next journey. With crypto being down where it is, that's a pretty good bet. I mean, I think that's a pretty good bet across the board. Having said that, I will say one other thing, because this is the part that really tends to grind a lot of gears with people. As an altcoin trader, one of the things that I learned really early on is don't think you can figure this stuff out, because ultimately the whales are going to disappoint you and hurt you. And so like right now, when people are looking at the whole marketplace, they're looking at coins and projects and that they love and like, and they think this is the great time to buy. And what ends up happening is if a coin already has price discovery and value driven into it, there's a pretty good chance it's going to get hurt over the next couple of months. Bitcoin dominance is about to go up really high, really fast. And when dominance goes up, what happens is the USD value of cryptos start to go up behind it, right? And so everybody's feeling like, oh, yeah, we're making money. But then they do this rude thing and they take it out of your altcoin. Your altcoin loses sats, essentially. You lose against the Bitcoin pair. And it's really rude, because what ends up happening is you end up not participating in the rally, and you're very frustrated and you're wondering who to take your problem to, and there's nobody. That's just how this market works. They undercut alts. The good news about our project is we haven't had price discovery yet, and the book is razor thin. So anybody who thinks that that's an idea here because they think that the price of this coin is likely to trend down, I mean, good luck. It might, it could, it certainly can, but I wouldn't bet on it. And at this point, I would actually bet the other way, because the book is really thin. It is just really, really thin. So, again, none of that's financial advice. Do whatever the fuck you want. But at the end of the day, this is the time to be making moves. And I think, getting involved in a storage project and building out a really nice infrastructure is one of those really great moves. I think, building picks and shovels, and putting in place the mining rigs that are going to work, I think are really good decisions right now. I think buying Bitcoin and ETH are good decisions right now. I think buying Stellar and ADA and all that other shit is probably the worst decision you could possibly make. But don't treat me as your financial advisor, because I'm frequently as wrong as anybody else in this market. So anyway, that's that. Now I'm gonna I just want to finish up here with about 2 minutes here on the XNS onboarding situation. So we do have a product that does work, but we do have a couple of things that when we got back from NAB that we needed to clean up. One of them was our big contract server operates, well, it did operate on essentially a small cluster, and we didn't really feel confident in it scaling and being able to handle exponential growth and so forth. So we shopped for a while to find a provider who could handle this big instance that we needed. That has now been transitioned over. We have a new contract server set up with a new contract server URL. All of you folks will run to the extent or end of your contracts, and then you will slowly move over to the new contractor and get new contracts form on the new contractor. The new contractor is really a major step for us because it essentially provides that robustness on the back end no matter what happens going forward, if we get a lot of business or whatever, or if we get 10, 15, 20,000 new providers with tons of contracts. So, and also after the June 30th or right around the June 30th period, the core devs right now are working on a sprint to fix that situation where storage per folder will be an individual contract. So if you had 4 drives on a machine, you'll have 4 contracts, and you'll be getting 4 different contracts worth of data storage versus one contract being spread across 4 drives and kind of cutting back on the redundancy and durability for you, even though the network still maintains the high quality durability. In this case, it actually kind of decreases your durability. So that'll be done as well. We have several people right now lined up waiting to onboard. We're pretty much ready. We have our applications for the relayer ready. There's just been a couple of little niggling last minute sort of things that we need to get done. But this onboarding is taking place, and ultimately I would suggest over the next several weeks it's going to start to exponentialize there as well. And so you'll see that line start to tip up and go up and to the right. And I don't think that's going to really be that. It's going to be interesting, but what will end up happening is we can actually make that number go up simply because we have enough leads currently in the hopper that I think will keep us busy for at least 30 to 60 days. And then after that, we'll be out there with the revenues from the Examiner sale, doing marketing of the storage product. And at that point, then we'll start getting people to just onboard directly, for off the street, off marketing and advertising. And so ultimately leading into what I think is going to be a very productive Q3. All right, so that's all that, and I think you're probably positioned perfectly in terms of time. I don't know what's going to happen with the people who didn't purchase a license. It's about 40% of the network. I don't know if they're going to disappear here soon or whether they're going to buy a license at the end. But I would guess that probably come July 1st, you guys are all going to be in for a pretty nice scenario, and then through the rest of the year. I think that the network growth will be paced side by side with the storage growth. So that's kind of the goal and what we're looking for. All right, I'm going to transition a little bit now, and I've got 2 people that I'm going to be chatting with here. I'm going to start first with Boomer. Let me bring him to the stage.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, you're coming in really loud and clear. That's great.
Good.
You're in Wisconsin, right?
I am. We got thunderstorms right now, so you might hear some booms in the background.
Okay, well, hopefully your internet stays straight. We're having a typical Colorado weather day here. It's 80 degrees today, and we have a winter storm watch.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't really know how that works, but I guess we're going to lose about 60 degrees in the next 12 hours. So anyway, so just a quick introduction. Boomer wasn't Boomer originally, so some of you might remember. What was your original? Oh, was it GOGS?
No, that's my GitHub handle and GitLab handle. It was.
Yeah, but I mean back when you helped us fork the project.
Yeah, I think it was Committed Climby or something. I don't.
Oh yeah. Committed Climby. That's right. You're right. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah. So Boomer actually was developer number 1, I believe, on the project. What happened was back in the day when we decided to pull this thing over, it was Jay and I, and essentially we needed to find a couple of people who could help us fork the project and get the blockchain off the ground. And Boomer's a Java developer and core engineer, and he came along and just kind of like picked up all the Golang and really dug into it. And I have to take my hat off because, and in fact, the original project leader that we forked from, actually saluted him in a DM to me. He said, I don't know how you pulled that off without a test net and didn't have any problems. But what happened is we forked from Genesis and the blockchain just worked. We didn't run into any problems until several months later when some code from some other dev, slipped in and caused us some things. So um, the project that you're sitting on and working on right now owes a great debt to the individual that's here with me on stage. Him and another developer named Drexel worked really hard in some crazy days. You remember those days, right, George?
Oh yeah, yep. Those were fun. It was good.
Um, what happened after that is that as we kind of transitioned into a Golang posture, George went back to his day job and focused really mostly there. But he's kind of found his way back into the project over the last several months, and we've been looking for things for him to work on and do, and he's done a number of utility things for us that have been really helpful. He's kind of the model of how you can interface with a project if you don't want to actually join full time or become something in one of our formalized roles. Just contact us and let us know what you can do, and we'll work on that. So the reason you're here today is because of a tool that you've built over the last couple of months that we finally got out there, and I do need to get the latest version up onto the website, and I'll do that as soon as this presentation's over. But it's called the Web Wallet. Tell us a little bit about what caused you to think about doing a web wallet and what your sort of design principles were.
Uh, yeah, I would say the big reason I got into doing the web wallet is I wanted to brush up on my Golang, and I felt like, man, we got this old wallet for SC Prime that just breaks, and we don't really have a great way to, like update it and interface with it. It would be really nice if we could just have a code base that we could all work on that is just kind of designed to be updated, in the same tooling that the daemon is, and so I just kept on digging and looking into how we could just kind of make a wallet that more or less just worked and built within the current tooling without having to what was the other thing? The other wallet was built in Electron, and having to download that code base and get that build environment going. It was tough to get anything done in the Electron wallet.
And with the other wallet, one of the things that is provided, which tends to cause a lot of the issues that we end up seeing, aside from it locking up and freezing, but they've included the renter and the host modules both in there. So it's kind of this all-in-one client, but it really doesn't excel or do a good job. And in our case, the renter is such a memory hog altogether. Having it running in the background just really is sort of a pain in the butt. So are those pieces included in the web wallet?
I mean, not really. No, I would say not unless you're gonna start writing your own code in the web wallet. It's not exposed. So the web wallet specifically, how it's designed is it imports the entire daemon as a library dependency, and then I wrote a whole new server module specifically just for the web wallet that only exposes the relevant APIs that you'd want to interface with the blockchain and the underlying daemon code. And it also, I added in like session tracking and a bunch of other security measures so that even though you're not having like a API key stored on your computer that you have to reference to use the API. Since it's so session based, you can only unlock the wallet if you're on the correct session, on the correct browser tab, and otherwise the wallet is still encrypted. And future looking, there are initiatives to just kind of sever that link completely between the client browser tab and the daemon web wallet backend right now. So ideally, in the future, we'll get to a point where your seed is actually derived on your client browser and stays there, and you create all your transactions and your coin tracking stuff from the client, and the web wallet ends up just acting as like more of a personalized Explorer module that it interfaces with. I believe someone else in the community did something fairly similar with the Android wallet.
Okay, so then the potential exists pretty easily for people to stand up server-based web wallets that can be accessed with mobile and other kinds of things. I think the project, we've talked a little bit about it. We're not sure if we're going to do that or not, but we might support somebody doing an instance or two of that out there in order to make a more of a accessible version of the wallet. But I love this idea of it just being a transactional wallet, not being the host and runner, because essentially one of the things that people always ask is, how do I just move coins around from the exchange to my wallets to cold wallets? How do you deal with things like cold wallets versus hot wallets and so forth with the web wallet?
Yeah, so right now there is a straight division between cold wallets and hot wallets, and so the cold wallet is, as I was talking about before, just completely contained within your browser. When you click the cold wallet button on this latest version, it actually downloads a web page to your an HTML page to your computer, and you'll click open that, and you'll see that there is no HTTP request going anywhere. You can run it on a computer that doesn't have an internet connection at all, which would be the ideal situation for a cold wallet. If you have any, computer that does not have an internet connection and has never been attached to the internet, you would want to just copy that cold wallet HTML file over, and you'll be able to interface with it that way. Whereas with the hot wallet right now, what happens is we have a couple ways to get the daemon up and running. Part of a lot of the development that I put into this was trying to onboard people quickly and painlessly. And so, traditionally you would you start up your daemon and wait for the peer connection pool to connect, and then you would download block by block your consensus. But we have in the first release, the 0.16 release, added a button that just lets you bootstrap the consensus, which is basically just downloading the published consensus that SC Prime Corp publishes per block to your consensus folder and bootstrap that way. And that is as fast as your internet connection is, more or less. As fast as your internet connection plus your CPU is at unzipping the consensus. For me, it takes 4 minutes. I've seen other people that have maybe not quite the setup I do take up to still 15 minutes or so. But then also in the latest release that Ken said he's pushing out today, there is going to be the option to upload a consensus DB that you already, might have on your computer somewhere else. And this will, if you already have a consensus file somewhere, you can just throw that into the upload dialog and more or less just jump right in fairly quickly. I mean, you're still going to have to, once you once you get the consensus going, there's still going to be a secondary menu that you will be presented with, asking if you'd like to create a new wallet or open an existing wallet. And so creating a new wallet, opening an existing wallet, restoring from seed, those will still need to scan that consensus DB to make the necessary indexes. But it's still much faster than where we were, say, a year ago for getting
And
someone up.
and does this wallet actually provide access to both the coin and the token, and give you the ability to send and receive and monitor the balances, as well as even the yields, the earn that you get off of an SPF?
Yeah, it displays everything in a transaction history. Everything that's in the consensus DB transaction wise, that's related to your wallets that you have will be displayed. And if you have multiple wallets, like if you have all your trading coins in one wallet, and you have like your midterm investment tokens in another wallet, and you try to keep them separate, you can log out and log back in to your different wallets very quickly, and it uses and since the web wallet uses a web browser, you have the added benefit of password management for these wallets. So if you name your wallet, say hot, and then you whatever 1238591 for your password or whatever it is, then the next time you open up the wallet, you'll get you got your password management, so you'll just be able to click there, and it'll have an option drop down that says hot, and it'll have your password, auto populated in there, and you can just zip right in there real quick. So that was fun to do once I figured out how that hot swapping would work. That was something that Ken was pushing me on, because it's gonna make his life a lot easier since he has to manage so many different wallets.
I go through I have about 9 different wallets that I go back and forth on, and yeah, it's definitely something that is going to change my life, I think. Actually, I'm actually uploading graphics while you're chatting about it into the events discussion channel. So if people want to see what the wallet looks like, this is the latest version that's in there, and you can get an idea. And I just stopped on this one because this is actually pretty fun. I didn't see this before. What whale are you? But why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, that's back from when we used to have a trading channel, and people kept on posting this "What whale are you" meme, and yeah, I don't know. I thought it was cute and interesting, So I mean,
And so it actually, so what happens is it gives
flavor.
you a chart of what whale are you, and then up in the upper left-hand corner, it looks at your balance, and then it puts the icon up there of what whale you are. And so I guess it's a goal thing. It gives you some goals to shoot for. So I like this. This is great. I'm currently a shrimp in this one though, 0 to 49. So I'm gonna have to transfer some funds over to this brand new wallet that I just made.
Minimum, you just got to start throwing 50 SCP in all your wallets.
Yeah, there you go. Then you're a minnow. All right. Well, look, this is a really valuable contribution to the community, and I want to start highlighting and spotlighting these things. So there are some other tools that third parties have built that I will begin to reach out and bring you folks up and talk and highlight what you guys have built. We definitely want to highlight to the world that, even though the actual storage sales and the distributed renter and all of that whole XNet services is, a private corporation, there's still a permissionless network underneath all of this, and there's still a very much an open sourced, roll up your sleeves and get involved kind of a network, and that part of things is going to evolve and ultimately grow. And I think there will be a lot of opportunities for people to participate in those areas and so forth. So this is a great example of helping out in the world and so forth. And if you do bring this kind of stuff to the table, we have ways of essentially compensating you for that. Because you're helping the community out, and that's of interest to us because it helps build the network. Anyway, that's Boomer's web wallet, and I'll get 1.9 up on the website later today. And folks, if you've been looking for a wallet, this is the one you should probably use as your go-to wallet. Behind that, I tend to use the CLI wallet most of the time, but this will end up becoming my main wallet going forward. And I just want to say thanks to George, and I look forward to the next thing you're going to be working on.
Yeah, cool. It was fun chatting.
Cool. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, the next guy I want to bring up to talk a little bit about development on the project and talk a little bit about where we're at and where we're headed and some challenges. And I want to do this in kind of a way that I sort of highlight where we are kind of as a development organization. So sort of by way of introduction, what I'm going to say is this, with George, for instance, we reached out to people we knew in the old project and just sort of said, hey, can you do this? And that was sort of how we brought a team together and put the thing, on its on the tracks. And then what happened as time went by, I went out and, scoured. I looked for a lot of different people and talked to a lot of different people. And ultimately, as we started to find the core engineers who could take over the Golang back end, which was pretty much all of the development for the first couple of years, we were really fortunate to get a couple of fellows who had significant blockchain background, as well as came out of environments that were well structured. So we don't have a group of developers that are all over the place doing all kinds of wild stuff. They're pretty good. I mean, they're pretty good in how they work. They're pretty good in how they comment, how they, do commits, how they do merge requests, how they do pretty much all the stuff they do. The problem that we're encountering now is because we're, getting into that place where we're starting to release stuff. We really need to crank up our cycles. We really need to get our, speed to release, from code to release, ramped up a lot faster. And I've been wrestling with that for about a year. And I don't come from a software development background. I come from a hardware background. So it's been challenging. And fortunately, because we do have such a great team and a great engineering side, or a great IT side with Jay, what's ended up happening is we've been kind of groping, and we brought a couple of QA people along and didn't have great success there. We did bring somebody in to talk to us a little bit about doing a full DevOps process. I think that the fit might not have been quite perfect at that point. I think the ideas were really sound, and I think we're going to implement the ideas. But we're in that process. And so what's interesting, and I said this to my co-founders the other day, when something's supposed to work, it just will. And this is a faith-based initiative, is what I'm sort of saying, is that when you're a founder in something, you always know when something's sort of supposed to work, because it sort of just does. And all the things that you need when you need them tend to show up. And you also know when you're pushing really hard against a seam and it's not going to work. Because it seems like you just keep banging your head into a door after door after door and not getting through. And in this project, even though we've had significant challenges along the way, whenever we've needed something for certain, it showed up. And what happened at the trade show was we met an individual who was interested in purchasing a larger number of coins and was inquiring some of our investors about how you could do that and so forth. And turned out the individual had bought a couple of examiners, but he bought just before batch one. I think he probably saw the Fawns Finds video or came in somewhere along that stage of the game, and so he really thought the project was interesting and wanted to kind of get involved, but mostly it was just on an investment standpoint. But we began to have a conversation, and I was fascinated quickly about, first of all, how much he knew about the project, and second of all, how much of an interest he had in it. And then when he told me what he did for a living previously, I was kind of blown away, that he would take an interest in us. And so what we've done is we've contracted with this individual to come aboard and to help us to transition our development engineering team into a more programmatic, agile type based environment, and to go that direction. So I'm going to introduce the gentleman now, bring him onto the stage. Hang on a second here. So I'll bring him up.
Hey, Ken.
And hey, Bob. So we're talking right now with Bob Lewandowski. Bob's claim to fame in terms of our project here was he was the CTO of a Fortune 100 company up until a year or two ago, and essentially has managed and worked with teams of pretty large size and gone pretty much from start to finish on all of these sort of processes. And gosh, we're just so lucky to have you involved helping us transition our team. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I think it's a perfect fit for both of us. Perfect timing, as you talked about, right? I left on a buyout last July and took some vacation and that kind of thing, but started to jump into a few crypto projects, and this one really impressed me. And so, as you said, I jumped in with 2 miners, so I'm a provider, just like most of the people on the call. I've got a 16 and a 64 machine, and things are going well.
That's awesome. And what specifically would you say that when you first sort of, when your ears pricked up on this project, what was sort of the headline feature or the headline thing that rang with you or that resonated with you?
So, at the Fortune 100 company I was at, my team was doing tens of millions of dollars with Amazon, right? And so, data storage, especially in the financial space, was close to what my teams had worked on in the past and were aware of, right? And so, I had looked at some other kind of not only business but also crypto projects, because we were doing some blockchain as well at the company I was at. The big thing for me in looking at this project was the opportunity is so impressive. Some of the other projects out there, like Helium, I mean, I can mention, 10 that I looked at and kind of researched. I'm just not sure I see the same overall opportunity. And it's just so compelling. I think the other things that stood out to me was the dynamic that it wasn't only a crypto coin dynamic, that there's a sale fiat part of this that engages customers in the same way that somebody would market and sell to somebody that needs data storage. That there wasn't a complexity there that was unnecessary. And so I thought some of that simplicity was going to significantly benefit kind of this decentralized model that is taking hold.
I think it's really interesting where we are right now because we've had a lot of difficulty narrating or putting a narrative behind that exact sort of thing. We started a meme called Evolution, then Revolution. I've mentioned Web 2.5, but I think we just actually the universe just sort of dumped on us an event which I think will highlight very clearly that we're on the right track by focusing on real world processes, fiat payouts or payments with the crypto back end, not focusing too much on the crypto on the front end. the rest of the world just saw this whole UST Luna Terra thing just blow up and take billions of dollars away, and now you have half the world thinking that crypto's a Ponzi and a scam and whatever, and it's probably going to set back this Web3 development. But in our sales calls, I think we're going to be able to go out and never even talk about the crypto. We don't have to. We're just going to talk about a great storage network. So when you came and started talking to some of the team, and I know you've had some pretty good conversations now with the folks on the team, I guess you expected to find a pretty shambolic organization with people that were disorganized and didn't know what they were doing and looking hungrily for leadership. Is that what you found?
Well, I was open to it, right? I mean, I think going to Vegas and meeting quite a bit of the team and just other people that were there, I became energized by the project even more, right? But a couple weeks ago, like what Ken just alluded to, a couple weeks ago we kicked off just really looking at the application development, that whole kind of arena, and not only DevOps but the code, and so I, over the last couple of weeks, I've kind of written down some observations, and I I can walk through some of those, but to me, what I would say is that stood out, solid code development. The tools in place are the things that you want to be able to use right now, and whether they be open source or some of the tools that are being used are top of the market. I think a solid architecture in place. One of the things I learned quite a bit is the team is really healthy. I mean, they're very committed to the project. They worked very hard to get to Vegas and the capabilities that were shown off at the show. But very committed, have good trust in each other and relationship with leadership. I've been really impressed. I've probably worked the most with Jay and Pavel, the other founders, and really impressed with their knowledge and their ability to influence. And some of the core things that have been put in place by them are really strong. Good. There's good coding practices going on. So unit testing and API libraries and code reviews, all that kind of stuff is positive. I think there's some good progress with a tool called Kubernetes, but just overall, just some of the newer things that the team is starting to put in place have been really positive. So I have a list of some improvements as well. Do you want me to walk through some of those?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that, and I may stop you in the middle of, on and plumb a little deeper into them. But yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Yeah. So I mean, some of those things that I walk through are solid foundation things. Couple things that stood out to me is we just need continued maturity, and that means focusing on automation. So Ken, you mentioned it earlier. The ability to go from a dev environment through test stage and then production and live, capabilities, it has to be faster. And so that's really what stood out, is bringing, automation to the build process and the environments, but also, bringing quality and testing automation. So that would be unit testing, building on that, but doing automated testing, penetration testing, security testing, functional testing. And so those are the things that we started to talk about and focus on kind of in the next in these couple weeks, but also next week we've got a meeting. We're going to walk through what our next priorities are. So,
And based on where we are right now in terms of essentially just launching the core S3 storage product, we now have that alongside of our two minor products that are out there. With this ability to start to put in more automation and to speed up the process from code writing to final release through all of the various stages, we'll probably see benefits from that almost immediately going in through to the end of the year, right?
yeah, and it's it's not only like developer time benefits, because we will definitely see that quickly, but it's also quality benefits, right? So our ability to have higher confidence that as we push different changes to production for whether it be customers or providers, that we have a higher confidence that the quality is going to be at the highest level, right? And so that's the key things that'll bring. The other thing it'll bring is some of the stuff that's maybe, maybe it's 3 to 6 months out. But I saw in the Discord somebody mentioned ISO compliance or questions about other kind of compliance that we would want to start to go for. These are all kind of foundational things to be able to attain some of those compliance things. And so, yeah, there's other benefits to it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think the really interesting part of the quality conversation that you're talking about is that it's not lost on me right now because sales is primarily my background, and that if we go out there and launch this thing and somehow land some sort of small whale customer or somebody who has some significant and reasonably good amounts of data to onboard, and the whole thing blows up on them, it could set us back years. I mean, it could literally set us back to a point where our reputation keeps us from ever actually getting liftoff. So this is the time to do the quality conversation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it also is, it needs to be a part of the culture you talked about with George, just the ability for him to introduce a capability, right? And maybe others could introduce different kind of capabilities. As the team starts to grow and we get more capabilities delivered, our ability to automate not only the build process and that kind of cycle time, but also secure it through, the security, penetration, all those kinds of testing. That's what's going to really accelerate the innovation, right, that we want to continue to build on. So.
And some of the deliverables on that would be like an SLA that we can stand behind. Some of the different kinds of ways that we can guarantee our pricing and availability and durability metrics.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. And some of the compliance things too. Some of the customers as we go out and sell services, they're gonna ask the same questions they ask to whatever the top 10 providers are out there. We're not going to get a free pass on some of the fundamental processes and compliance things. And so our ability to get ahead of that will really position us well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when do you foresee some major changes coming, and will the community in general be able to see any of this stuff in action, or is it all going to be more the community's just going to primarily see good code shipping faster?
Well, I think it's key that what we do is customer centric. There's an outcome to the provider or the relayer in this case, and they start to see those kinds of things. But we would definitely share, some of the plans that we have. We're introducing some of that, next week, and definitely going to have some investment that's going to take place in this space. I think where it'll show up is it'll show up at our ability to, support the quality of the products that get put out over the next several months here.
And do you see some need? I mean, we kind of have gone back and forth with, do we need to hire a manual QA tester to start with? Do we need to go get a second tier, QA person who can write all, routines and scenarios and do some coding there? Or do we need to turn most of it over to, an automated process and test netting? And, do you see some new roles opening up that soon I'm going to have to go get money for?
Yeah, so Jay and Pavel and Chris and I had that kind of discussion today. We really think that we need someone to to lead the kind of DevOps environment space in a full-time role. Mainly because you're not only managing the code and the blockchain and the migration, that the automating the build like through Kubernetes. So that would be one part of the role, but you're also supporting all of the testing of compliance and all of the testing disciplines. And so from an environment perspective, and so we really think that's a role. And then the other role is, QA and testing and even manual testing has really changed. Anything that's like in this modern technology, there's really not manual testing or like a QA like in a traditional sense. It's really it's an engineer, it's a developer. So any of those tools that we are going to start to introduce, like Selenium or anything else from an automated testing, or even things like Sonar that catch, cross-site scripting and all the security type things that you'd want to be able to protect us from, or even some of the data testing, it's all development, right? It's an engineer. So we'd go out and get somebody that is a QA engineer or a developer that has that kind of experience, because it's an engineering role. So the other thing, Ken, is we're definitely going to come and ask you for some outside resource, because we don't really have. I have a ton of experience in QA testing and setting up teams, but we're really going to have to get some outside resource to help us, probably for the next, maybe 3-4 months, to build a strategy and then start executing it.
It seems like I'm going to have to sell a lot of examiners, is what you're really saying.
Yes, that is the case.
Actually, there's some good news on not just that front, but we have had some additional folks sort of ping me about having some interest in equity positioning in our corporation and what we're doing. And even though we're not really in a raise posture right now, there is an opportunity there. So I'll just leave it at that, because I don't want to turn this call into sort of like an illegal, stock selling session. But there is efforts going on. So I'll just leave it at that for anybody in the audience. So there's been a couple of things here for folks in the group. If you have some interest and maybe some background in any of those roles, definitely feel free to reach out to us. If you know somebody who's really good in those areas who might be a good fit and you want to send them our way with a resume, please do, and we'll take a look. And then, as Bob said, we'll probably shop out some work to some organizations in the front end to kind of help us in the beginning as we kind of evolve and grow and build into this thing. Then that'll be sort of the next step. And so long-term goals?
Well, I think the long-term goals is really to be able to build this foundation. We have true continuous integration and delivery. So we're able to go from that dev to production. Maybe it's not every 15 minutes, but at will, we could go to production in an hour with significant confidence in like those main areas of, the security of it, the data, all of those things are high confidence. And so really would be part of the long term, is pulling all of those foundational pieces together. One of the things we didn't talk about too, which is really important, there's a lot of things going on within the project, and just some structure of communicating with team members that are really all over the world. The team is looking for some of that, like tracking ability or some kind of tool. And so somewhere in our future here in the next 3-4 months, we're going to introduce a tracking tool that's going to help us with development. We really need that. I don't think that's the highest priority, so that's why we didn't talk about it much, Ken. So
Yeah, I think it's been pretty interesting, because I think we've done a competent job of running a fully distributed organization and being able to sort of get the plane in the air. But not a day goes by that this whole thing really wouldn't have stayed together if we all on the team didn't always just keep trying to coordinate with each other. It's just like every day is filled with, we're doing this on this time, or we're shooting for this to happen here, and it's like it's really almost like 20% of anybody on the team's job just to kind of keep track of where everything is. And you're right, it's taxing, and it's also very it's challenging. So I really look forward to streamlining and building that into it. And I think the headline here for people that are listening that might not really understand what they're totally hearing here, I think what we have right now is we have an individual who cut his chops as a C-suite level talent at a large Fortune 100 corporation. We're talking, biggest corporations on earth, who took an interest in our project because he saw enough here that it might be interesting to get involved in. And once he got involved and started to see what was in there, he actually got more interested. So I think a lot of people who along the way have sort of dissed us or maybe didn't give us enough credit, I think some of that validation's showing up now, and I hope people maybe see that. And I really look forward to working with you, Bob. And so far it's been a pleasure, and we're glad to have you around.
Thanks, Ken. I really appreciate it. And clearly, I'm enjoying myself. Like I've told you, I love to work. I just didn't want a job, and I think that's why it's a good fit. So thanks.
Cool. I think what I'm going to do right now, I don't know if Boomer is still around, but I'm going to call him back to the stage. And then what I'll do is I will open up the questions to people in the audience for our two guests, and pretty much anything goes. Be polite, be civil, obviously. If Boomer's not here, then, well, he'll just be on stage and quiet. But
I'm here for about 9 minutes, but then I start out.
Okay, let me see if I've got some hands raised or not. And if I don't have any hands raised, then you guys maybe get off scot-free and ollie income free. So, well, no Q&A today. Go ahead.
Hey, we're waiting for maybe somebody to raise their hand. You asked me about end goal. I truly think the end goal is that our customers and our providers have the best experience possible. That it's high quality. They trust the services that we're providing, and we're able to provide additional capabilities at that high quality. I think that's the end goal. Like all this detail we're talking about with like coding and that kind of stuff, the end result is that we're able to sell these services and people just love it. Like they're just, and providers as well, they just get the capabilities that they need at a certain pace with high quality and security. And that's the key. And so that's why we're really building this foundation, right?
I think there's going to be a customer that we're going to get for a very short period of time, which are going to just show up because of the novelty of this thing. But I think that's going to go away really quickly. And if we don't deliver the delightful experience that you're talking about that is comparable to a regular, high quality cloud service out there, we're not going to last very long. And so that's really been deep in my guts for quite some time. So it's great to hear. Got a couple of questions, so let's bring some people up and let's see what they got to say here. Java Renink, come to the stage.
Hello, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I like the project, and I have a couple of Exa miners on my house. And I know this project is long-term project. So my question is, I have 64 terabyte Exa miner, and I know like for the next year or two, this miner is not gonna be full. So my question is like, if there is a way like I can use the extra space like sitting for personal use.
On the Examiners, we haven't set them up that way, no. And
Like
if
in the
you
future.
if you want the real answer to your question, what you want to do is you want to wait till the meeting's over. You
Okay.
want to go listen to the recording of the meeting because it's everything I said in the first 10 minutes of the meeting. You're going to make all your money in this first year off coin appreciation, not off of the number of terabytes that you've sold.
No. My question is like
I understand. I understand your question, but your question is there any way to repurpose the terabytes in another direction that you can use until they get filled up here with the project? Well, at the end of the day, the answer to that is no, we don't want you doing that, because what happens tomorrow if we land two major corporations that have hundreds of petabytes of tape archives that they want to upload to the network, and you're sitting over there with all of your Game of Thrones collection taking up 50 terabytes, and, we're not going to be banging and pinging on you saying, hey, you need to retransition, so you need that device sitting there with those 64 terabytes ready to go. And ultimately, you need to not worry about your ROI because that will take care of itself. And if you need something to hold Game of Thrones, I just suggest going out and buying an external storage device.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Sure. 18 spoons. Why 18, by the way? Can't get by with 16 spoons? I mean, how many spoons does a person need? That's a lot of spoons, right? I mean, 18 spoons? You have to unmute your mic.
I can't count any higher.
Okay, so it's actually supposed to be 28 spoons. Go for it. What's your question?
Not knowing when batch 2 was going to come out, as the end of the month came, I went ahead and bought a full license. Now, if tomorrow they're available, I'm going to go ahead and buy an XM, but until then, I wanted to go ahead and get started on my learning curve. If you're open to it, is there a direction you can point me into a brand or a product that I can use this license on?
Well, no, because the full version of the license won't actually be released until late June. And by then, the Examiners this batch will be already shipping and well on the way. The full license, if you really want to understand how the full license works, you want to take a look at some of the screenshots that are in the various channels. But one of the things that I'll just say to you is that's on my to-do list, and I definitely it's rising near the top, so you'll see it fairly shortly here. We do need to get a product page up for the Examiner and by extension, the full software licensed version. Because right now there's all these pieces, the interface, the supervisor, how it all works, the auto pricing mechanisms, the collateralization that takes place automatically, the Grafana, the metrics, the KPIs that go on there. So all of that needs to have some explanation and some screenshots and really just a product web page. I do have a web developer who's working with us now, so I would say two things. XMs will be available next week. That's a no-brainer. The only thing about it is, though, there's 15,000 names on the wait list. I don't know where you are on the wait list. If you want to DM, I can look your name up and tell you, although I don't want to look up 15,000 names, but that's coming. So I do expect we're going to get through all the names, by the way. So I don't think that's a concern. I think we will get through all the names. But I also think we'll get a product webpage up for you so you'll be able to see exactly what it is.
So I guess I misunderstood you. I heard that you wanted those licenses active by the end of June.
Well, the thing about it is that so first of all, we wanted to encourage people to dive in and go ahead and get licensed. So we would know with some sort of certainty what our licensed install base would look like. So what did we do? We put a rebate on them, right? We decided to give them out at a discount essentially to retail in order to encourage the people to buy them. But we said at that point that, what you're going to end up getting is you're going to get the XM UI, which is the current UI that we, are running right now on the Examiner hardware. You're going to get the back end pieces that allow an Examiner to work, but you're going to get those on a piece of hardware that you bring to the table, right? So if you already have a computer that has storage and so forth, the full version will essentially turn your unit into an Examiner. Some people will prefer that. Some people will want to do that. Other people will say, well, I don't want to build and maintain my own computer, so, I just want the Examiner itself, and, congrats and do that. So that's really the situation. For you, though, to understand what the piece you bought is, I expect that we're going to get some information out there on the website so you can plumb deeper into the UI, since you don't actually have a Examiner hardware that you can look at and see exactly what it does. Or you can talk to anybody in the Examiner channel and say, hey, can you guys share some, experience and feedback and menus and things like that with me? I mean, there's not a lot to the unit when it gets right down to it, but at the end of the day, the units actually do have some very specific things that need to be explained, and we'll do that soon.
So at least for, I guess, the promotion for buy-in before the end of the month, I don't have to have that license up and going by the end of June?
Well, you will need to have it up and going by the end of June, yes.
Okay.
That's the deadline, by the end of June.
Okay.
You don't need to have it up and running today. That's the whole thing. You got about 6 weeks. So, and we're not even going to release the software probably for another, 3 to 5 weeks. So there will be a grace period in there, and we'll make it work for everybody the same as we always have. But at the end of the day, that's the deal. And you know what? It's quite possible as we get through the end of batch 2 of the hardware that we make some offer to people that bought the full license, that if they decide they want to upgrade instead to a hardware version, that we can let them trade in that license and take the full Examiner hardware in lieu of, not in lieu of, but they'll get the discount of what they already paid for the software as applied to the hardware piece.
Oh, great. Okay.
So if that's you, that's something that we'll probably make available.
Okay, that sounds great.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. It's exciting to have Bob on the team.
It is, isn't it? All right. One more question here. Ball in a cup. Oh, 2 more questions coming.
All right, Lloyd Christmas back. Just had a quick input. So, hypothetically speaking, if I had my Game of Thrones, couldn't I just rent the storage and upload the Game of Thrones, and then that way I could utilize the space that's not being used right now on my XM Miner? Is that not the way it would work?
Well, first I have to say that you didn't even address my Paul Anderson, riff, so I'm not happy about that. But second of all, no, you can't do that, because if you do that, what you're doing is you're essentially putting community data on your device, and then that's going to mean you're going to end up running afoul of us and our contract data. Remember, we are going to put in place a thing where we only favor providers who are accepting contract data from us and us alone. And the reason for that is because we don't want to have that sales conversation. I don't want to be sitting across the table from a CFO, CEO, CTO of a pretty big, company who is ready to onboard, hundreds of petabytes of storage, and have them say, we read this article the other day about some child pornography that exists on your network, and I want to make sure that our data is not sitting on the same devices as that. And I won't have an answer for that, right? I just will not have an answer for it. So the answer is that we won't accept providers who are accepting community data. For now, you get paid incentives only on contract data, and you can have as much data on your machines from all contracts that are available. But going forward, once we hit that cutover, and June 30th is our target right now, but it could be sometime after that, but you will have a switch, and you will be able to turn that switch, and that switch will be let the community data contracts expire gracefully and go away. And if you're somebody that wants to accept community data, well, that's fine. I mean, the network will probably continue on bifurcated with people doing just community data and people doing our data, and that's okay. We just aren't going to be tied to the other stuff, right? You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I must I apologize, I must have missed that. Just maybe trying to throw it a little funny. But to throw it out there, I've had my miner plugged in for less than a month, and I'm seeing, I feel pretty good growth on it. I mean, growth daily. I'm not going to get into specific numbers, but it seems to be growing at a rapid pace on a daily basis. I'm happy with how it's climbing, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to get in for another miner.
Yeah, it's gradually then suddenly, and I think that we're going to just see that number continue to do the up and to the right thing, and then at some point it's just going to hockey stick upwards, and then we're going to need as many of you people as we possibly can find, and more. So we saw how this worked in December, and I've been doing my best to sort of keep my thumb on it to keep it stifled. But at some point I'm going to pull my thumb off, and when I pull my thumb off, we're going to get back into that mode again. So I think you guys are going to have a good experience over the next year to two.
One other real quick thing. I asked last week on the call, and I guess I probably misheard or whatnot, but so if I would go out and I would buy an additional external hard drive, I can or I cannot plug that into the back to gain access to more storage off of my XM miner right now.
Only reason why that exists as a thing is that what we didn't want to see is we didn't want to see a bunch of people buy the 16 and then plug in all of these shambolic hard drives, so that we had all this really kind of weirdness on the network, not a lot of consistency in the first batch or two of examiners and so forth. So, we set it out to say, look, to guarantee the rebates, to ensure that you're going to get the rebates, you have to essentially not modify or do anything with the unit itself going forward. After that last rebate pays out, then you can do whatever you want.
Gotcha.
Right? You
Yeah,
can
I don't want to mess anything up.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks, man.
That's the deal. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sweet. So 3 quick questions, see if I can remember them off the top of my head. Have you made decisions on upgrading from the standard license to the full license on costs?
From the standard to the full, yeah, we've made that decision.
I mean, not the standard, the command line.
The basic version, yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say there's only one person out there that hasn't solved the standard to the full thing yet. So on the basic thing, no, we haven't actually come to a decision yet on that, and it's a thing that I think we don't really want to focus on yet until we actually can deliver some beta or alpha code out there. It's all fun and games to say that this is what it's going to do, but until we actually show that we can do it on some machines, and I'm actually sort of like underselling that because Jay actually did show the whole thing running on some weird little computer the other night in one of our channels. So we know we can do this, but I think we want to get a little further up the road on the full version before we go ahead and start really getting people to upgrade. I will say that we're going to be really aggressive about getting people to upgrade. I mean, we to be honest with you, we want everybody on the full version of the software. I just think there's just going to be all these opportunities that are going to show up where having a consistent across the entire spectrum network is going to allow us to do some of those things Bob referenced in terms of compliance regimes and being able to pass the audits and be able to, have KPIs that are meaningful because they reference something that's pretty consistently across the entire provider base. So I just think that there's going to be this place where there's a future where there is no such thing as basic. And go ahead.
I understand that. The root of my question is, have you decided on a cost to upgrade from the straight command line to the full version?
Well, I mean, right now, why would the cost be anything less than just the difference? I mean, the delta would make sense. I mean, it's not like you would, get a better price by waiting, right? I mean, that would piss everybody off that bought a full version. They'd all come back to us and say, we want a discount, right? So,
sure. Is that available to do now?
I'm gonna say yes, even though it's not a product in the store. It's an easy enough product to build, though. But here's what I think. Here's what I think it will look like, and I'll just spitball a little bit here. So they all didn't pay full price, right? They paid $450, yes, but they've got a big hefty discount and rebate coming back to them over the coming year. So I would suspect that if we do a basic to full upgrade before the end of June 30th, we might put something in there and say, yeah, we're going to discount it a little bit. You'll get a rebate. Won't be quite the same rebate that the guy got who, came aboard immediately. It'll maybe be 3/4 or 60% of the rebate that they got, but it won't be the full price either. So the full delta. So as always, we're going to look out for you guys. We're going to take care of you. But you should have to pay just a little bit more than the people that were early, because the people that are early, as usual, absorbed more of the risk and so forth. So there you go.
Sure. And just as a personal feedback on that, in my mind, the people that are worrying about that difference are stepping over dollars to save pennies.
Yeah.
Like you keep saying, this is a long-term thing. So I'm not necessarily concerned about like rebate versions or any of that stuff. This is in my mind a long-term investment, and I'm not going to worry about $100 or whatever.
It's just the Chia thing where somebody shows up and they've been being paid for 80 terabytes of unused, used, whatever you want to call it, that a plot equals over on the Chia network. And they just don't grasp this idea of actually selling something real to somebody. And we have to go out and actually get that real stuff and put it on the network.
Sure.
So,
okay. Second question is, as I roll out more providers that are literally going around the world, I know I can remote shell into them, but the question is, I'm interested in developing my own dashboard to talk with all of the different providers around the world that I have. And I'm wondering, is there web services? Will I need full software for that? Will the command line license be enough?
the full software, we're building a whole MQTT network behind the full software installation, which is how a lot of these big Internet of Things and other communications on giant distributed networks work today. And so that MQTT network will essentially provide the capability to monitor and change and alter and futz with units all over the world and huge numbers of them if you ultimately end up with a ton of them. In addition to not only providers, but also relayers in case you're doing MSP work and you're actually provisioning storage for people as well. So that'll be all in the full version and so forth. As far as the basic version, my gut tells me that, some people will come up with some SSH ways of, doing things and then building those into some clean, neat little dashboards, and we'll certainly support those efforts and so forth. But I doubt you'll ever see us roll the MQTT network down into the base version. It's going to be the full version.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, looks like we made it. I appreciate. I don't know. Did you have another question? You came right back up with your hand up. I'll bring you back up to the stage real quick to see if you had missed. Nope. Did you have another question or no? I'm guessing you just misclicked.
I did, and I just misclicked. Sorry.
All right, back to the audience. All right, I want to say thanks. Actually, Boomer left, and that's okay. Nobody had any questions for him. But thanks to my two guests here today. This is something I'm going to do more and more going forward. We're going to start exposing more parts of the project to you folks and more of the people involved with the project. I expect one of these days I'm going to bring up a whole bunch of you guys and have kind of like a provider roundtable. In fact, we might do something regular where like one out of every 3 or 4 meetings, we just have sort of like a provider roundtable session where we get 5 or 6 of you guys to sit up on the stage and talk about issues that you're confronting. And who knows, maybe I even sit out of one of those and just let you guys take it and move it forward. These meetings are going to evolve over time. We are going to do more than just have me provide news of the project and so forth. And, you know, there's a rumor out there that I'm kind of an unglued individual. And so, you know, definitely we want to get more of your voices up here as well. So we'll do that going forward. Thanks everybody for showing up today. Really appreciate your support. The network is looking great. We're all doing a great job. Storage is going up. It's going to keep going up. You're going to see a lot of really interesting things happen over the next several weeks leading into that June 13th end of Q2. And I think the rest of this year is just going to be gangbusters. So it's all because of you guys and this great team that we've assembled. And anyway, have a great day.